At 14, Brandon stood ready to protect others. By 30, he had traded this calling for the patch of America's most notorious motorcycle club. The Bandidos became his identity, his family, his reason to rise each morning. And then things changed. Something shifted. Something that would drive him out of his precious club when all he ever wanted was to be accepted. Brandon's story isn't about motorcycles or mayhem. It's about the primal human need for connection and the dangerous lengths one man went to find it. When family wasn't enough, when traditional paths left him feeling hollow, he found brotherhood in the shadows. But brotherhood came with a price higher than Brandon imagined paying. Blood, prison, fear. And eventually, the hardest decision of his life, walking away from the only place he truly felt he belonged. This is the story of a man who sacrificed everything for brotherhood, only to be kicked out bad. Brandon never fit neatly into a box. He wasn't lost, but he wasn't exactly found either. Houston raised him under a relentless sun, where the air smelled like asphalt and ambition. Inside his home, love was a quiet thing, not spoken, but shown. His parents didn't just care for their own, they opened their doors to people with nowhere else to go. Strangers became guests. Guests became stories.
I remember my mom and dad picking up people from, random people. You would not believe some of the characters that came through the home. If they needed a place to stay, they were that couple, that we grew up in a religious atmosphere, to where they felt burdened to help people.
And Brandon soaked it all in, even when he didn't fully understand what he was witnessing. He should have felt whole in a house full of open arms. But the truth? Something inside him still felt empty.
Honestly, I really wasn't close to my siblings. No. If I look back, and it would have been awesome to be close with them, but we're not close at all.
Maybe it was the belonging he wanted. Maybe it was something deeper, something he couldn't name. And when a boy doesn't know what he's looking for, he searches everywhere. Food was a comfort. Plates piled high with Mexican spices, Cajun heat, and crawfish boils that stretched late into the night.
Well, good food. A lot of good food. I was a little fat kid growing up.
You were?
Dude, I was overweight. There's too much good food, bro. Mexican food, Cajun food. It didn't help my mom cook good, my dad cooked good, crawfish boils, this, that, and the other. Just a lot of, I really don't know how to answer that again. I try not to be, like a parrot and be repetitive for what I say, but I guess just plant work and good food, basically how I could really explain it.
But the weight crept up, turning comfort into struggle. It never broke him, though. His dreams burned too bright for that. One day, he wanted to be a hero. Another, a fire-breathing dragon. Reality had rules, but imagination didn't.
I was consistently inconsistent with my goals. I wanted to be a Pokemon at one point, so.
Still, Texas didn't just shape his appetite. It shaped his understanding of what it meant to be a man. Fathers around him labored in refineries, clocking 12-hour shifts, returning home too tired to be present. It left gaps in their families, gaps that kids like Brandon tried to fill in their own ways. Some turned to the streets, searching for loyalty in the wrong places. Brandon, he became a wanderer in his own skin.
I got my GED. I was expelled from most schools that I went to, even from elementary to middle school. Very physically violent kid. Had a rap for fighting, had a rap for just getting into the gang things as a young kid. I was always searching for a group of people that would love me again.
One day, he was chasing a passion with everything he had. The next, he was on to something new. Nothing stuck, but the hunger for connection never faded. And for all his searching, one truth remained. He didn't judge people. He never cared where someone came from, what they looked like, or what the world said they were. He just wanted to belong, and in return, he gave others the same acceptance he wished for. But life has a way of twisting our desires. What we chase can lead us to places we never expected, places we never meant to go.
It was a gradual thing. It's, these simple things that I didn't kill at the time, whether it was a bad habit or something like that, that ended up gradually becoming what I formerly was, recently was. And a lot of regret in between, but yeah, I think that it played on my mind. And my parents were vocal about it. They never agreed with my choices. I screwed this whole life up, bro.
Brandon thought he was searching for home. He had no idea what was waiting for him instead. Hey brothers, tired of YouTube's BS and censorship? It's time to break free. That's why I've shifted gears to Patreon, where I can bring you the raw, uncensored content you crave. Join my Patreon crew and get an insane package deal. Exclusive early access to all videos, days before YouTube, 100% ad-free viewing experience, uncensored, no-holds-barred community discussions, double the content, 2 killer videos every single week, VIP access, direct interaction with yours truly, inside scoop, exclusive biker world updates you won't find anywhere else. Ready to join the elite? Hit that Patreon link now. Your support doesn't just keep us rolling, it fuels a revolution of uncensored, unrestricted content. Join now and unlock a world of exclusive benefits. Brandon had spent his whole life searching, but once he found the Bandidos, searching was no longer an option. He was in.
Well, I loved motorcycles. I loved motorcycles. And that was about me. I was prideful. I was, keep in mind, I've been nice to people. It was like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde thing. I was always respectful to people and, kind. No one that can say, hey man, he was a jerk. No, never been like that. I did it to be this wow factor, to be different. I did it to have this persona of don't mess with me.
And in this world, you didn't just belong, you were owned. The club didn't ask for half measures. It demanded everything.
But if you ask any bandit, they're the biggest and they're the baddest. But if you ask anybody else, they're the biggest, they're the baddest. So it's a never-ending story.
Earning his patch in just 179 days was no small feat. Most men endured years of tests, humiliation, and hardship before being welcomed in. But Brandon? He tore through the process like a man who had no intention of waiting. The Bandidos saw something in him. Maybe it was his discipline sharpened through years of combat sports. Maybe it was his ability to adapt, to read the room, to mold himself into whatever was needed. Whatever it was, they didn't just open the door for him. They pulled him straight inside. And once he was in, there was no easing into the deep end. It came fast. The respect, the camaraderie, the sense of purpose. But so did the expectations. The Brotherhood had rules and loyalty. That wasn't just a word. It was a test you had to pass every day. Brandon had worn many titles in life: husband, father, fighter, pilot. None of them had fit quite right.
I went through phases to where it was nuts. And it was one of those things, like I was always good at everything, combat sports and riding horses and bull riding and this. It's just so, I'm a pilot, I just decided to do something and I'm like, yeah, I'm this today and then I'm not you know what I mean? So I was always looking and searching and it was just empty.
But when he pulled on that cut, when he felt the weight of the patch on his back, something clicked. For the first time, he felt like he was exactly where he was meant to be. But belonging had a cost. The deeper he went, the more the lines blurred. The things that once seemed unthinkable became normal. Violence wasn't an exception, it was a language.
And what's crazy is certain individuals in that club still today, I owe my life to in a way. because they have put their actual physical body on the line for me. They have shown those things. And I said, have you ever jumped in front of a bullet for me? Have you ever stayed with me when shots are being fired at me? And have you done that? No. So that's love. That's love. And that's what I wanted from them.
Respect wasn't given, it was taken. And when the club called, you answered. No questions, no hesitation. At home, his wife watched the shift happen. She had seen the man he was before, the one who had chased purpose in so many places but always returned empty-handed. Now he was different, more confident, more certain, and more dangerous. She never told him to walk away. She knew better than that. But she feared the day would come when the club would ask him for more than he was willing to give. Brandon didn't see it that way, not yet. He had found what he was looking for. A family, a purpose, a brotherhood that didn't flinch at his past or demand explanations. But brotherhood wasn't just about taking a man in. It was about testing him. And sooner or later, every man in the club had to prove just how far he was willing to go. Doubt crept in, like a slow poison. At first he brushed it off. Maybe he just needed more time, more trust, more battles to prove his worth. But the more he gave, the less he got in return. Brotherhood wasn't supposed to feel this lonely. He had bled for the patch, put his body on the line, and yet, when he needed backup, silence was often the only response. The men he called brothers could raise hell at the bar, but when real trouble came knocking, their loyalty was more selective.
I tried, man, but I gave this everything. I gave my family, I gave my life, my time. I gave up all of it, bro. I was willing to die. I was willing to, and I showed that, and I proved that. I was willing to give up my freedom. I was willing to give up my baby girl, my baby boy, to tell my brothers that I love them.
Still, he pushed forward, refusing to admit what was becoming painfully clear. The club demanded more than it gave. Money vanished into club dues with no explanation. Orders were barked from above, unquestioned and absolute. The power structure wasn't built on respect. It was built on fear. And when you climbed too high, when you became too strong, too independent, the same men who welcomed you in could turn on you just as fast. Brandon had seen it happen. A brother here, a brother there, exiled, beaten, or worse. Sometimes over debts, sometimes over disrespect, but often for reasons never spoken out loud.
I called a brother up, or an ex-brother, and I said, man, you need to come out of this lifestyle. It's extremely volatile. I found out a lot of things. I was trying to give him the down low. I found a lot of things that are true. We're fighting for no reason. There's people that are talking to the other side, the other team, the other motorcycle club for their self-preservation, and they're giving up our addresses. They're giving up this. They're giving up that. So let's stop. We got to stop. We got to stop fighting.
And then there were the funerals. They were supposed to be moments of honor, proof that the club took care of its own. Instead, they felt like rehearsals, because everyone knew their time would come sooner or later. The faces changed. The eulogies stayed the same.
I couldn't give you a count. I don't have enough hands. It was brutal. And yet, I'm faced with this after the fact. Like, man, what? It made you bitter. You still love them. You miss them. But it's pretty pathetic because you're missing something that really wasn't valid. It really wasn't a real thing.
Yet even in the midst of it all, he couldn't walk away. Not yet. He still believed, or at least he wanted to. So he rode harder. He fought meaner. He went places alone when others wouldn't. If brotherhood had a price, he was determined to pay it in full. And then, one night, the price nearly cost him everything. It started as a simple ride. Club business, nothing out of the ordinary. But in this life, the ordinary had a habit of turning deadly. The air was thick with tension before they even arrived. The kind of tension that said someone had been lied to, double-crossed, or set up. Brandon didn't know which, but he knew the feeling well enough to trust his instincts. When the first gun came out, there was no time to think. Fists clenched, adrenaline spiked. He had fought in rings, in cages, and parking lots, but this was different. There were no rules here, no referees to call time, only survival.
No, all that is a struggle. There's not really a much love, loyalty, and respect. Even the people that you love and are loyal to, the moment you get a tab that they don't have, it's like, oh. And it's envy, jealousy. It's I want what you got, or I want to be ruling over you. It's status.
And in that moment, with chaos erupting around him, a realization cut through the madness like a blade to the gut. He wasn't fighting for brotherhood. He was fighting to make it out alive. Walking away wasn't as simple as turning in a patch. In this world, leaving meant betrayal, and betrayal had consequences. Brandon knew what happened to those who stepped out of line. He'd seen it firsthand, the warnings, the beatings, the disappearances. Some left in silence, their names never spoken again. Others weren't so lucky, but the weight of his choices crushed him.
I was always struggling with the Holy Spirit. I called it a demon at that point because that's what I was wanting it to be, but really it was, you need to leave. You need to get out. You need to do this. And I ended up struggling with that the entire time.
He thought about his children, the years he'd lost chasing an illusion of brotherhood. He thought about his wife, the woman who had stood by him despite the growing fear in her eyes.
I think that at one point I was really thinking, like, I said, don't ever speak on my brothers like that again. They're not your brothers. They're not your brothers. And they were trying to wake me up because they could see on the outside looking in going, Brandon, they're not your brothers. Don't you see they're using you? You're literally a human Kevlar.
And he thought about himself, the fighter, the survivor, the man who had spent a lifetime searching for something real, only to realize too late that he'd been chasing a lie. Still, walking away wasn't just about survival, it was about redemption. Could he undo the damage? Could he reclaim the years he'd given to men who saw him as disposable? The breaking point came one night, swift and brutal. A knock at the door. A familiar voice, a request that wasn't really a request. They wanted him for a job, one that wouldn't allow hesitation, one that would demand absolute loyalty. Saying no wasn't an option. But saying yes meant crossing a line he couldn't come back from. Brandon had seen enough. That night, he made his choice. He gathered his wife and what little they could carry. He left behind the colors, the patches, the life that had nearly consumed him. And then he disappeared into the unknown, knowing full well the hunt would begin the moment they realized he was gone. Because in this world, no one just walks away. But Brandon had spent his whole life fighting. And for the first time, he was fighting for himself. Was the real cost of freedom. For Brandon, it meant walking away from the only identity he had ever truly embraced. He returned his patch, cut ties with the Brotherhood, and braced for the fallout. The consequences came swiftly. Overnight, his phone, once filled with calls and messages from so-called brothers, went silent. The same men who had once sworn loyalty now spread the word. He's out bad. From Texas to Taiwan, Russia to Australia, his name was blacklisted. The global reach of the Bandidos ensured there was no coming back, but while the silence stung, it also brought something unexpected: clarity. Brandon moved to Virginia, putting distance between himself and the club's stronghold. He knew relocation wouldn't erase the past, yet it gave him room to breathe. For the first time in years, he could make decisions without looking over his shoulder.
And still, to this day, man, I haven't found true love outside of my relationship with Jesus. I haven't found that. In my darkest and deepest moments, I've always found that it's just been me. That no one physical person can give me the peace that he's given me.
But who was he without the patch? That question haunted him, though it also became his motivation. Instead of answering to the club, he turned toward those who had always been there, his family, his children, once an afterthought in the shadow of Brotherhood obligations, became his anchor. He spent hours on video calls with them, using goofy filters and playing interactive games, trying to mend the distance years of neglect had created. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. And for Brandon, something was better than nothing. Faith also found its way back into his life. Raised in a religious home, he had drifted far from those teachings. Yet his wife's unwavering belief reignited something in him. Unlike him, she had never been burdened by dogma or empty rituals. Her connection to God was simple, pure, and real. Watching her, Brandon realized that faith didn't have to be complicated. It didn't require a patch or blind loyalty. It only required trust.
I pray to God that he keeps me consistent this time around, man. I really do want to I want it less of me, more about him. My whole life has been me driven. I constantly thought about myself, how to advance myself, what to do, how to get there, and I didn't think about the people around me, not my wife, not my children, not my parents. Didn't realize that every decision that I made affected someone.
But leaving the club didn't mean leaving danger behind.
Because it's like, one day I love you, one day I hate you. And the thing about the Brotherhood is, when you're out, I got put out. I'll be out bad here in the next couple days when Sos posts what he posts. But I was out bad already. You know, my own people had put a hit on me when I left. That's not cool. Like, those are my, and they tried to use the people that were our enemies to do it.
Brandon still slept with a gun nearby, knowing full well that some grudges don't fade with time. Old brothers might still want revenge, and the weight of that reality never truly disappeared. Yet fear no longer dictated his every move. He had traded the illusion of brotherhood for something real, genuine relationships built on respect rather than rules. He missed a few faces from the club, but the truth was clear. What he had been searching for had never been there. Now his message is simple. You don't have to die for this. You don't have to leave your children fatherless or your wife a widow. He knows not everyone will listen, and some might never understand. But if his story can save even one life, then speaking out is worth the risk. Because real brotherhood isn't found in a patch. It's found in the people who love you long after you take it off.